Are the tribe from the north, we're brave and we're bold, defeating our rivals never gets old, making our way to the Big Sky Conference. Watch out, 'cause here comes the silver and gold. Whoa, whoa, this is Tubbs at the club for the Vandals of Idaho.
Welcome back, Tribe from the North, brave and bold, to the official, unofficial podcast of your Idaho Vandals and the Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brian Marceau, joined as always now by former producer Dammer, Dallas Hammer. Dallas, how's it going?
It's all right. For any listeners, I'm wearing my newest Los Angeles Rams hat. I'm hoping that this weekend is not going to cause me further football pain. I thought that was over when the Vandals finished this most recent season, but here I am getting ready for more heartbreak. So really looking forward to talking to you all next Tuesday when you're all going to rub it in my face that Matthew Stafford threw 3 interceptions. Calling it now.
It's important to just be ready, set expectations adequately, whatever. But anyway, you guys may notice if you're watching, listeners don't see this yet, we had said we were going to be debuting a new producer, a.k.a. Martin Hot Take Heemstra. He is clearly not with us, and we're holding it against him. But now, Martin had work stuff come up. He's going to be joining us as quickly as we can. We're here to talk about a handful of things, including additions to the coaching staff, a transfer portal segment we have not been able to do. We're also going to do a quick basketball update. But we're going to start around the bar right now. That's brought to us by Hughes River Expeditions. Dallas, the big news that came in over the last handful of days is, at this point, we're waiting for essentially only one total assistant coach to be announced to Jason Eck's staff at University of Idaho for the football team. And we have a complete staff. We're going to run through everyone who's been added. But this makes it kind of weird to bring it up thematically because it's just a ton of new guys to go over. But I can tell you, I'm pretty excited about the staff. It's a mix of some younger guys than we saw in the last coaching staff. It's some guys who have some experience that I'm pretty excited about. So we're going to go through from top to bottom really quick. Jason Eck talked when he was on the show about Luke Schleissner coming over with him offensive. He's going to become the offensive coordinator for Idaho. He was he's offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Dallas, when he was at South Dakota State, what was Schleissner's position?
He actually had a couple different positions, and I think that's the most important thing to talk about. He was initially the tight ends coach. For any of our NFL followers, Dallas Goedert, one of the 5 best tight ends in the NFL, at least in the top 10. Schleissner coached Goedert from being a walk-on to being a second-round pick who is incredible in the NFL. So he started out as the tight ends coach. He was there, started in 2014, ended up becoming the passing game coordinator in 2019, so taking on just a little bit more responsibility in the air, and then transitioned from tight end coach to receivers coach in 2020. So last couple of years, he's been the receivers coach there.
Now, on paper, like if we just look at his last position, becoming an offensive coordinator is, of course, a promotion relative to being a tight ends coach and a passing game coordinator. But this is not Schleissner's first stint as an OC, is it?
That's correct. From 2011 to 2013, he was actually at North Dakota, which is his alma mater. Started out there as the tight ends coach / fullbacks coach, then became the passing coordinator / receivers coach, then became the offensive coordinator in his final season there before moving on to South Dakota State. When he was the offensive coordinator there in 2013, they were 23rd in total offense, 18th in points per game, 11th in passing yards per game, and 9th in passing rating out of the 121 FCS teams. So really good offensive showing when his one single year as an OC. He played there at UND. He won a title there in 2001 when they were still D2. He was a player there. And then most interestingly to me, he actually coached Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay started out at North Dakota before transferring to NIU. He was Kenny Galladay's first collegiate receivers coach. And then obviously Galladay went on to catch a whole bunch of balls from Matthew Stafford and looked like a pretty good receiver. Obviously this year was ruined by injuries, but a pretty big time to be able to say you coached multiple NFL players. And then maybe the one that's most impressive, before he was at North Dakota, he was at D2 Minnesota State. He was there for 5 years as the special teams coordinator / recruiting coordinator, did both jobs. Again, D2, you got to wear a bunch of hats there. Then became the receivers coach in 2009 and 2010. He was the receivers coach for Adam Thielen. Obviously, Adam Thielen is one hell of a story, going from a D2 school where he was a star, walking onto his hometown team and becoming a 2-time Pro Bowler. But that's 3 different NFL guys, 3 different good NFL guys that Luke coached. So pretty fantastic to see that. Absolutely love the background there from Coach Slice.
Yeah, a theme you're going to see in a handful of the new coaches is coordinator experience elsewhere, whether they're coordinator for Idaho or not. We have a lot of former coordinators on that fill out Coach X staff. There's also a lot of experience in I'm going to call it broadly the Midwest area. We're counting in the Dakotas. We're talking into Illinois, Minnesota, in that area of the country. And a guy who fits that profile as well is our new defensive coordinator and linebackers coach, Rob Arch. Now, I may be butchering the itch part, but on this show, until further notice, he's Rob Arch. Rob Arch is joining our staff from South Dakota University, another Missouri Valley Football Conference school. Not South Dakota State, South Dakota. He was there from 2018 to 2021 as the special teams coordinator and inside linebackers coach. Prior to joining South Dakota, from 2014 to 2017, he coached at Division II Bemidji State. In 2017, he was the defensive coordinator there. So again, he wasn't a D coordinator at South Dakota, but there's his defensive coordinator experience. In his 1 year as the defensive coordinator at South Dakota, his team, a pretty strong defensive team. They're top 10 in yards. They were top 10 in the nation in yards allowed per carry. They were top 10 in the nation in interceptions, and they were top 10 in the nation in yards allowed per play. Now, his coaching experience ends there because he is kind of similar to a good amount of guys on this staff, different from not everyone on Petrino's staff, but a good amount of guys on Petrino's staff. Eck has a healthy number of younger guys who have coordinator experience but are taking a pretty big jump in their career. That fits Arch's background. I mean, he only finished his bachelor's degree the same year I did in 2010. His was from Minnesota Duluth, where he played and won national championships as a player in 2008 and 2010.
I know I'm supposed to have a transition point off of this, but I really don't. So I'm just going to awkwardly transition to my next coach I wanted to bring up because I got nothing to transition off of that. Brian's coaches tended to lean a little bit younger. I think I've got one last coach that we kind of split this up of detailing the coaches half and half. The next coach I wanted to get into is our new recruiting coordinator / tight ends coach, Tyler Sutton. He's another one of the kind of younger guys on the staff that is maybe a lot younger in his football career. Interestingly, on paper, he's taking a downgrade to come here. He most recently finished up as the offensive coordinator at San Diego. He's been actually with San Diego since 2013. Started out as a volunteer unpaid assistant, which I'm assuming is what really is what draws Eck to this guy. Starting as a volunteer coach is a pretty rough thing to do. So he started out as a volunteer assistant in 2013. 2014, he became the running backs coach. He was running backs coach until 2018. He ended up coaching Jonah Hodges, who ended up being an All-American in, I think, 2016. Became the special teams coordinator there in 2018. Did that for 2018 and 2019. Had 2 different guys, Michael Armstead and Tanner Kuljian. I don't remember how to pronounce his name. 2 different special teams All-Americans under Sutton's time as the special teams coordinator. Then he became the offensive coordinator in 2020 and 2021. San Diego, for anybody that doesn't know a whole lot about their program, before Coco ended their streak of 9-win seasons, they had 6 straight 9-win seasons, 8 conference championships since Sutton's been there, gone to the FCS playoffs 5 times. They've won 2 playoff games. Notably, they did lose to Cal Poly this year, so that's a huge blemish against Sutton to me. It's pretty disappointing to lose to Coward Poly of all places. Obviously, I'm joking. Sutton played D3 football as well, so like a really weird background for this guy, a lot different than most of the guys you think of playing at a higher end 4-year school and jumping right into coaching. He played D3, volunteered as a coach before finally getting a paid spot. And then the biggest thing to point out, and this is probably why he's taking this weird, you're going from the offensive coordinator in the Pioneer League to a recruiting coordinator / position coach here in the Big Sky. The Pioneer League does not have scholarships. And I think that's probably another thing that obviously Eck talked about it when we spoke with him last week, but there are no scholarships for athletes in the Pioneer League. So being able to put together a team that is consistently good and consistently goes to the FCS playoffs and wins FCS playoff games without scholarships is huge to bring in for the new recruiting coordinator. So younger guy that has a bunch of coordinator experience. Obviously, he's just the tight ends coach / the recruiting coordinator here, but a lot of experience getting added to this staff, Brian.
Yeah, relative to younger guys we've talked about so far, and what you brought up about Tyler Sutton, you're right. Losing to Coward Poly is a big deal, but just in case listeners aren't aware of that joke and why that's actually a joke, is of course San Diego reputationally had become the Pioneer Conference team that would often make it to the playoffs and then lose to a Big Sky team in the first round because the playoffs are scheduled regionally, and San Diego would only be scheduled to play West Coast teams. So he certainly has experience playing against Big Sky teams. Losing to Cal Poly is rough, but that's also just the barometer of, look, if your conference offers no scholarships, this is why that's a jump to go from offensive coordinator at a school like that to recruitment coordinator at Idaho. There's one other Midwest coach I want to bring up, coach with Midwest-ish background. And this is a hybrid position that, to me, I don't know if it's surprising or if it should be surprising, but just on paper, it feels that way. Most coaches are either an offensive coach or a defensive coach. Like if you're director of football ops, you're just director of football ops. Tyler Yelk, who is coming to us from University of Temple, that's FBS Temple, is going to be our passing game coordinator and our safeties coach. Now, insert joke, if we end up having trouble at all as defending the pass like we did in the last handful of years, insert joke about experience coaching safeties because you have experience getting guys open. But we're not there yet, so we're going to hold that joke and hopefully never need to make it. Tyler Yelk was at Temple most recently from 2019 to 2021. He was safeties coach in 2020, outside linebacker. He started as a defensive analyst in 2019, worked his way up to coaching outside linebackers in 2019 and safeties in 2020. Prior to that, he coached safeties at Northern Illinois. Prior to that, he was co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach at South Dakota University. He is the another guy with connections to South Dakota University. We're going to spell that out a little more. Prior to coaching at South Dakota, Yelk worked at Western Illinois, another Missouri Valley Football Conference school from 2013 2015 as the defensive backs and special teams coordinator coach in 2013-14, then co-defensive coordinator in 2015, and started out his coaching career at Minnesota Duluth Division II, where he won a championship as a player in 2008, graduated in either 08 or 09, forgive me, I missed that one, and started his coaching career in 2010 at Minnesota Duluth, where he won a championship as a coach as well, where he coached defensive backs and special teams coordinators. That's a mouthful of stuff. That's another guy, Dallas, that Midwest background, so just different recruitment footprint than some of the other guys on the roster. Has that South Dakota background, where actually both Yelk and Rob Arich played under current South Dakota head coach Bob Nielsen when they were at Minnesota Duluth. And Yelk has, of course, experience coaching being a coach under Bob Nielsen.
And I actually have a great transition for this one. You teed this one up perfectly. The next coach I want to talk about is our new offensive line coach, Joe Tripodi. For anybody watching, you're going to notice, oh, hey, look, that's the exact same website. He comes to us from Temple, just like like Coach Yelk did. Tripodi's actually coached with Yelk for quite some time. They both have served on the Rod Carey staff that left NIU to go to Temple. Joe Tripodi is an interesting one because you hear the guy's the offensive line coach for an FBS school. Why is he taking the exact same job here? When you look at the statistics, maybe a lot of that Temple staff is going to get fired next year, if not all of them. So maybe that's why we're getting Yelk and Tripodi to come here, find a little bit more job stability. So Tripodi's been with Temple since 2019. Again, he followed with Yelk and the rest of the staff that followed Rod Carey to Temple. You might see it on the website here. The second paragraph points out Matt Hennessy and Tripodi turning Hennessy into a first-team All-American finalist for the Remington Trophy. Hennessy is currently the starter for the Atlanta Falcons. I know the Falcons are not phenomenal, but again, the guy coached an NFL starter. Temple, over the last couple of years, their sack numbers have been decent. They were top 40 in the FBS in 2019. Their offense was okay in 2019. And then in 2020 and 21, their sack allowed numbers have been decent, but their offense has been putrid. And so that's probably why Tripodi is looking for a little bit more job stability. For anybody that's concerned about that, hearing like, oh, hey, he's been a coach at this place for 3 years and they're only getting worse. He coached at NIU for 10 years before that, for 8 years before that, from 2010 to 2018. Started there as a graduate assistant, ended up becoming the O-line coach in 2013, became the running game coordinator in 2016, and was the run game coordinator / O-line coach from 2016 until he went on to Temple with the rest of the staff. Interestingly, I mentioned Kenny Galladay earlier. He actually had some overlap with Galladay because Galladay transferred to NIU once he left North Dakota. So a little bit of weird, like he didn't coach him obviously, but left Schleissner to go be with Tripodi, and now they're both in the same Idaho staff. Kind of cool. He also coached Max Sharping, Max Sharping. I can't get the word out. Max Sharping's a starting tackle for the Texans. So again, another starter that in the NFL that has been taught football by Joe Tripodi, which is always a good thing. Not a whole lot of FCS coaches can say they've coached NFL talent, let alone multiple guys that have succeeded in the NFL. Statistically, NIU's teams from 2016 to 2018 had some of the best sack against numbers. In 2016, actually the second fewest sacks allowed across the entire FBS. They averaged 240 rushing yards a game in 2016. Absolute bullies for a while there. Obviously, things haven't quite worked out at Temple, and that's probably why he's coming to Idaho. He's another guy from the Midwest. He started as a guard for Northwestern from 2005 and 2006. Again, a guy that is a little bit older this time. He's not like a lot of these coaches we've talked about that are kind of younger guys. I mean, he's been a coach for a long time. He played college football damn near 20 years ago. So a guy with a bunch of experience coaching the offensive line. And again, he sent 2 guys to the NFL. So you can't really complain about that. Not a whole lot of FCS schools are going to be able to bring on a guy like this. So pretty exciting hire to me.
The Midwest connection with a lot of these guys, I think, is a pretty good compliment to some of the other guys we have on staff. I kind of want to save a certain someone with the connection to our hated rival for last, or almost last, Dallas, because we do have. Perfect. Let's go with the news that broke just before the show started. Matt Linehan is coming back to Moscow. Matt Linehan is reported at this point to be the wide receivers coach for Jason Eck. Now, he's going to have the easiest resume to talk about because he's definitely the least experienced coach on the roster, in that his background is as a graduate assistant first at San Diego State, and this season graduate assistant at University of Missouri. That's, Power 5 SEC University of Missouri. Listeners are going to be more familiar with Matt Linehan from his time as a starting quarterback at University of Idaho from 2013, 26 to, sorry, no, not 2013, 2016.
Got to cut you off here as well, Brian. You did not point out that he was the backup quarterback for the Salt Lake Stallions of the Alliance of American Football. I think that's where most people are going to know him from.
That is where most people are going to know him for the Alliance of American Football League. But yeah, Matt Linehan was starting quarterback from 2014, 2017, including the best season Idaho's had since 2009, when in 2016 he was, of course, a starter for the Idaho team that went 9-4 overall, including a humanitarian bowl, not humanitarian, my bad. Idaho famous Potato Bowl win in 2016 over Colorado State. There's not much to talk about in terms of his coaching connection. Obviously, his dad is Scott Linehan, but he's really the most recent player who's made the jump back and had an official position where he's not like a graduate assistant. How do you feel about the young guy, Coach Matt Linehan joining the staff, Dallas?
As long as he doesn't coach anything like his father, I'm okay with it. Honestly, as long as his career is a 180-degree turn from what his father's coaching career was, great. I respect what Scott Linehan did for the Vandals, but again, he absolutely ruined the St. Louis Rams, and then quite notoriously was replaced by Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. And as much as it pains me to say it, they absolutely made the correct decision there. So as long as Matt is a better coach than Scott, I'm for it. Getting a young guy that's the most successful player from the Petrino era, you can make the argument it would be nice to have a completely clean break between eras here, but again, Linehan is probably the most known and most successful guy from the Petrino era. Not a bad guy to have on the staff.
Yeah, not a bad guy to have on the staff. I'm with you on like the idea of a clean break would be nice, but I'm going to tell you a lot of listeners, a lot of fans are going to be excited about Matt Linehan joining the staff because look, he had the final 2 seasons he was here. There were our last 2 FBS seasons. They were like he was certainly quarterback of a good team. Now, of course, coaching is different, and this will be really him getting his feet wet. But I have no reservation saying I don't think the success of this team is going to hinge strictly on Matt Linehan. So this might be like a nice landing point. The guy that I want to transition to that I'm really excited about, that has a really odd background to me, is Thomas Ford, who he has a different footprint for recruitment. He is not a Midwest guy. Thomas Ford, whose brother Tracy Ford was mentioned by name by Jason Eck in Eck's opening press conference. He is coming to us from, most recently, he was a quality control analyst for the offense at University of Washington. But this guy has, to me, a pretty dang interesting resume in terms of places he's been to. He played football and ran track at Linfield, which is a Division III school in Oregon, won a national championship. He was a running back at Linfield in 2004. They won championship. Played in the National Indoor Football League for a while for the Tri-City Fever. And now this is where his coaching career, to me, gets interesting. And side note, we should have started early in their careers instead of working backward. But hey, next episode. He gets his coaching feet wet in 2009 and through 2012 as a special teams coordinator and recruiting coordinator at Division II Southeastern Oklahoma State. Now, again, we've brought this up multiple times. Lots of coordinating experience on this staff, not even at coordinating positions. From there, he becomes the defensive coordinator at University of Puget Sound, this Division III school, from 2012, 2013. 2014 takes a U-turn of sorts, is the head coach at Stadium High School in Tacoma, Washington, school that was not known for football success. He took over in 2014. School hadn't made the playoffs since 93, and the year before Ford took over, they were 0-10. Within 3 seasons, the Stadium High School in Tacoma was making the playoffs. They made it his final 2 seasons, where he then jumps. This is the really weird position. Head coach at hated rival of University of Idaho, Simon Fraser, which is Division II Great Northern Athletic Conference. Record there is not great, but I don't think anyone in the world could have a good record at Simon Fraser. The thing I'm taking away from that, and of course, I already went over his most recent position after Simon Fraser. He is head coach at Simon Fraser in 2018, 2019. Thomas Ford is going to be our special teams coordinator and our running backs coach. And he has a ton of varied experience where his focus is special teams and offense, but not only does he have special teams background, he was a defense coordinator as well and a head coach. I think that's pretty interesting resume. In addition to the recruitment connection he's going to have to Washington, specifically Western Washington. Idaho's already been pretty successful at getting some Central and Eastern Washington guys, which those are some of our big contributors, i.e. Zach Borish, Tri-Cities Kamaikan High School. That guy's a big get for us. That's a name we've talked about. Thomas Ford might help us access the other side of the Cascades, in addition to coaching experience anyway, that I think is worth getting excited about.
And that's the thing. So we obviously, you mentioned Tracy Ford. Tracy is the CEO of Ford Sports Performance, which is a pretty big deal over in Bellevue. They've worked with a bunch of athletes. I think there's a picture of Bobby Wagner on their website. If you go to, I think it's like fordsports.com or something, it's something along those lines. If you Google Ford Sports Performance, it's pretty easy to find. So like you said, really interesting to get a guy that maybe he doesn't have a direct tie here, but has family ties here, knows the area really well. Huge deal when we're talking about recruiting. And I don't want to compare this staff to the previous staff, but I think the one thing we all agreed on was the previous staff did a really good job at bringing recruits in. It's nice to see that, at least on paper, there's a bunch of talented recruiters and a bunch of guys with great connections out here. So that leads us to our final coach we have not talked about. And for anybody that's reading on the screen, it is not pronounced lose. I definitely made that mistake the first 13 times I read it. It's David Losey, not lose. So we can't pin anything on him when things are going poorly. It's Losey, not lose. Anyways, David Lose. God damn it, Dallas. David Losey, sorry, is coming to us as our new defensive line coach. Again, this one hasn't been officially announced by the university. Most of these have, but Tripodi hasn't, Losey hasn't, Yelk hasn't, Linehan obviously hasn't, because that literally Brian found out about that as we were going live. That's why we were a little late today. So Losey, and of course you guys are now making fun of me. Losey, I'm gonna try to make sure I don't mess that up again. Losey.
We should spend more time talking about his pronunciation.
We probably should. I just can't get it right is the problem, because I know in 5 seconds I'm going to say lose, and then you guys are going to just rip on me, and it's going to become the next meme. It's like pristine bitches and lose. Those are going to be the two things we're known for around here. Anyways, David Losey, coming to us from Oregon State. He's been a quality control analyst there since 2018. He has had a very interesting career, I think. He's a former offensive lineman, and we're going to get to that in just a second. Once he ended up coaching at St. Paul's College in Virginia, coached at a high school in Sacramento I'd never heard of, then ended up at Wazoo under Mike Leach. Ended up there, I believe, on the Wolf staff, and then stuck around for the Leach staff. Was a defensive assistant there, did a bunch of different jobs, essentially just the grunt work. Did a lot of film and scouting reports and things like that. Was involved in quite a few bowl teams with Wazoo. Then he went to Portland State and was the defensive line coach there in 2017. It's his only position coach experience at the college level, or at least at the NCAA level. Portland State in 2017, do not look up their stats. That was a historically bad defense, ranked in the 120s in scoring defense, sacks, and total defense. There were 123 teams that year, so you bottom five would be saying too high of things about that defense. And then after that, he moved over to Oregon State. That's his alma mater. Their defense was awful in the first year of Jonathan Smith, and then has gotten slowly better as time has gone on. Again, as a quality control analyst, you can't say a whole lot about what he's doing and what his contributions are, because he's a quality control analyst. He's not even a position coach, but he's getting a chance to be a position coach again here at Idaho. I could go on this giant rambling long rant. Losey started 18 games for the Beavers back in the late 90s, early 2000s. This is about to get profane, so if anybody is not a fan of the word MF, skip forward 15 seconds. This guy blocked for Steven motherfucking Jackson. So I am on top of the world right now. I could go on for 30 minutes here about how Steven Jackson is the most underrated player in the history of the NFL. He's going to be one of the two best running backs to not make the Hall of Fame. Maybe he'll make it when he's like 65, but there are three guys that are above Steven Jackson in the NFL all-time leading rushers category that haven't made the Hall of Fame. Frank Gore and Adrian Peterson, who are either active or not eligible, and then Fred Taylor. So if you guys, I know we have a bunch of Seahawks fans. You guys love Marshawn Lynch. Imagine Marshawn Lynch running on the worst teams known to man. That was Steven Jackson. Look up his highlights. He was incredible. So I'm all in on Losey. His resume isn't phenomenal, but he blocked for my childhood hero. So I'm all set. And thank you. Grow up, guys. Rack of Tits 69. You are absolutely correct. I will be much more professional from here on out.
If you're a listener, that is one of the live viewers commenting on us with the handle Rack of Tits 69, our favorite handle at this point. So that's the list of coaches that we can go through. I'm going to try to take the 1,000-mile view, which is we've got a lot of guys early on in their careers, earlier, not all, but it seems like there's a bit that's something Eckett indirectly brought up when he talked to us about. He wants people who are smart. He wants people who are hungry. I think a lot of the guys on this roster, you could say that they're taking this position because it looks like it'll be a step up, or it will be a launching position for them into the future, which I think is, look, that's what FCS coaching staffs very often are. There's kind of a mix of two options. You can do what Idaho has previously done and what Montana is doing right now, where a good amount of your coaches are veteran guys who they may have coached elsewhere. They may have had more higher profile jobs, but this is you would ideally get stability out of the veteran staff, which Montana gets. We absolutely did not get that in our time with Petrino. Or you take the other option, which is a little more closer to what Eastern Washington does. Montana State has done this as well. And now, hey, you can say Idaho, where a lot of our assistant coaches are guys who are, if things go well, you should expect next year we're going to hear that there's a few of them who leave. Particularly with, example we talked about, we are a little more wishy-washy on Matt Linehan, which I don't want to be unfair. It's just he doesn't have a resume the other guys have to go over. Matt Linehan might reputationally be great when he's at Idaho, and then he's gone next year, which is great. If our position coaches are rolling in and out, if they're turning over because things are going well, then hey, that's great news. I think that's the kind of staff X trying to set up at University of Idaho. And I can tell you, based off our previous experience with Petrino staff, I'm all for whatever Control-Alt-Delete looks like. Eck and his staff have been much different about engaging with the media, engaging with the fan base. And it looks like a decent amount of their hires have a chance to fit that profile as well. So at this point, no one's ever going to be higher, Dallas, on a coaching staff than fans when guys are first hired and they haven't played. But I want to say from this far out, when we haven't seen the team playing, we don't have stuff to judge, I'm pretty happy about the direction X taking the staff so far.
Same here. And that's something I think I was pretty notoriously upset when we heard that Brent Peace was a candidate. I did not like the idea of Idaho going back to the well of an older guy who's had a bunch of stops in a bunch of places and his career's kind of slipping downward. And that's a lot of the Petrino staff was like old football lifers. A lot of the Akey staff was that way. I know people remember Jason Gesser being the offensive coordinator, and obviously he didn't have a whole lot of experience at that very end, but he had Steve Axman, who I think was like in his 70s when he was the offensive coordinator here. There are a bunch of like older guys that were kind of on the back nine of the career. That is not the case with this staff. Most of these guys, it seems like, are young, hungry, up and comers, and he spoke about that to us. He likes guys that are smarter than him. He likes guys that are hungry. He likes guys that are driven. And if this turns into a factory of guys getting promotions elsewhere, you can't say more about the state of the program. Again, not to keep talking about old staffs, but how many position coaches from the Akey and Petrino eras were getting hired and promoted elsewhere? It just wasn't happening. If that's what the goal is here, is hire a bunch of young guys and they turn themselves into stuff and move on, that means that we've got this program running in a good direction. So that's I couldn't be happier at this point, but I also don't know what a coaching staff could do to make me really upset about it. Martin,
yeah,
damn it.
Yeah, exactly. The listeners will just miss that Martin loves to haunt Dallas with Bresky references, Bresky joining Petrino's staff from Washington State. I know we said that Matt Linehan, in terms of Petrino era, is not completely a Control-Alt-Delete. I want to put an asterisk there. as far as a coach, he is Control Alt Delete, as in Linehan's coaching background has nothing to do with Petrino. So at this point, I like that we're at complete factory reset. Luther Ellis is kind of the one name that a lot of Vandals had said, hey, if there's only one coach from the Petrino staff who stays on, we hope it's Luther. And, I probably feel that way too, but Luther is not going to be joining the staff. I don't know what his next step is. We, of course, wish Luther Ellis the best of luck with whatever his next step is. And we do the Idaho's D line was good while he coached. And also we had a couple of his kids play on the team too. So we're happy for the time we had with him. But I really think overall the factory reset's the right thing to do here. I know Eck on our show talked about how when he coached in Idaho, he was part of a couple different coaching staffs. And then when Rob Akey took over, Rob Akey decided to have a clean staff. Eck's doing essentially clean staff. And it's a lot of guys with FCS background. It's a lot of guys with coordinator background, even guys who are not being hired as coordinators. At this point, I don't really know what else the staff can do to get people excited because they're doing everything right. They're getting names out there. They're getting people they're engaging with the fan base to the extent they can. Social media stuff is cleaner, a lot more aggressive. We're starting to see some recruits roll in, as in we've had a couple guys transfer in from New Mexico over just the last day or so. We've got more recruits. Martin's going to spend more time talking about recruits or helping us talk about recruits in future episodes. But we're starting to see names join the Idaho program, which that leads me, because we just talked about transfers, we have a special edition of the transfer portal, Dallas. Would you like the Dallas listeners missed this? Dallas just did some little extra producer magic to get it on. Paul Petrino has officially joined the staff of South Alabama. That's a Sun Belt conference school. He is going to be an offensive analyst. Why do I bring that up, guys? Because this is great news. I mean, never mind that, Paul did coach at Idaho. He was not close to good while at Idaho, but, he has background at Idaho, so it's not awful to find out he got a good job elsewhere. It's a pretty big deal for Idaho because every single penny that South Alabama pays Paul, Idaho doesn't have to pay that. So we don't have any announcement on the salary figures, but Idaho just shaved a little bit more money off liabilities they had for firing and not retaining head coach Paul Petrino and his staff. So that is only good news for Idaho. Dammer.
Yeah, I mean, good for him. I know a lot of people weren't thrilled with Paul Petrino. I will be the first person to admit I never liked him. I was in the media at the time of his hire. I thought he was honestly a pompous dickbag. He wasn't particularly kind, and it was just such a tough thing going from Rob Akey, who took the time to learn my name and like be cordial with me, and Paul had just no time for the media, no time for the public, which again, that's his prerogative. Like I didn't know the guy personally. I had just a handful of interactions with him, and I wasn't a big fan of the hire. Wasn't a big fan of him. He just rubbed me the wrong way. He's still a human being. I know that there are plenty of parents and players that have some real problems with him. But he's never been Bobby. At least to our knowledge, he never had the personality problems and the mistress problems and all these awful things with that Bobby did. Paul never had any of those, so it's cool for him that he got a job. He landed on his feet. He's going to be fine. Like, it sucks that people get fired. It sucks that those kind of things happen, but he's out of our hair. We never have to think about him again. Once his buyout's done, then good riddance. I never want to think about anything other than the 2016 bowl team ever again. The rest of those 8 years can just bury in the sand, and we're past it. It's behind us.
Yeah, listeners might be surprised that I jumped over this. It's that I am of the attitude that, look, if you want to listen to how I felt about Paul's teams, listen to our old episodes. He's old news. X the guy. We've got exciting new coaching staff that I care about. But it does matter that Idaho just saved some money with Paul getting hired in South Alabama. So We still don't have news on Chuck Staben transfer portal. I think that transfer portal may just be done. But if we have need to bring it up, we're going to. Dallas, before we transition, because we do have a quick basketball update. And guys, that's the football update we have so far. So if you're a listener for football, this would be the time to, I don't know, stop. If you're along for the ride for basketball, stay on.
Hey, we haven't gotten to the ad read yet. Don't kick our kids out before, or well, I say kids. Most of you are probably older than I am. Don't kick our listeners out before we get Colin's ad read out there.
Well, you're right. Now we're still in Around the Bar, which is brought to us by Colin River, Hughes River Expedition, obviously our favorite river expedition company. If you're looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Venture into the largest protected wilderness in the continental United States, located right here in the great state of Idaho. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River No Return, Salmon River Canyons, and the Selway, and you can even check out special trips like the one to see the Perced Meteor Shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in beautiful natural hot springs, take in the history along the river, and fish some of the most remote stretches of river in the country. You just bring your clothes, let HRE handle the rest. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal owned and operated since 1976 and ready to take you on a vacation of a lifetime. What are you waiting for? Find out what it's like to grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 800-262-1882 or check them out at hughesriver.com. And now it's basketball time, Dallas.
Hashtag HRE Little Brown Stein. We are starting the movement to get Hughes River Expeditions to pay for the advertising of the Little Brown Stein.
Yeah, which is, of course, a joke. We just want them paid for Tubbs advertising. We love you, Colin, but we love your footprint wherever you want. So basketball time now. Idaho played 2 games this last week, Thursday and Saturday. On Thursday, hosted Montana State in Moscow. Idaho goes down 92-72. We were paced by Mikey Dixon, 24 points on 5 of 9 shooting. So yeah, Mikey Dixon, 24 points on 9 total field goal attempts. Downside is Montana State shot just under 50% from 3, shot 56% from the field. Really hard to win games that way. Then in Cheney, Idaho plays a competitive game, real high scoring game. Idaho goes down 96-93. Once again, Mikey Dixon paces Idaho, 25 points on 6 of 11 shooting. So again, huge in terms of efficiency numbers. Rashad Smith also added 17, Tanner Christensen 14. But again, Eastern shoots 55% from the field, 52% from 3. Just hard to win those games. Dallas, what's the story from those 2 basketball games?
Well, the story to me is this team is bad, but at least they're not historically bad like last year. They're almost fun bad. Like, not really, because as Tom Kendall, for the folks that aren't watching, Tom Kendall threw into our comments, can we get a D coordinator for Klaus's basketball team? That would actually help. Defensively, this team is an absolute nightmare. They can score, and Mikey Dixon is a ton of fun. I think there's a little bit more help he could probably use on the offensive end. It's tough when Trevante went 3 for 14 in 26 minutes. Like, off nights from guys they just can't recover from at this point. Just not enough there. But Mikey's great. As Tom said, there was Tubbs royalty against Eastern. Watching Eastern, I think the most frustrating thing is watching the team and realizing this team is a couple pieces away from being decent. They're just defensively, it's just not there. Unfortunately, they're just very shallow in the posts. It's close. It's improvement from last year. Is it enough improvement to keep Klaus around? We can discuss that. There's multiple options on the table for that. But my big takeaway from these games is Idaho's going to struggle against big teams. They're going to struggle against teams that can shoot. They're just going to struggle on the defensive end, and against really bad teams in the Big Sky, they might pick off a couple wins. Idaho State's not very good. There's a couple winnable games out there, but at the end of the day, this is the ceiling of this team when everything's going well is mediocre. Just to throw it in there, Racket Hit 69 saying, "I'll be right back. We're on to basketball. Need the bottle of whiskey." Yeah, it's another one of those years. It's going to be rough. If you score 93, you should win. It's exactly right, Tom Kendall. They scored 93 points and they lost. When was the last time we could say that about Idaho basketball?
Yeah, I want to talk about Mikey Dixon for a couple of seconds before shifting to the games. In 3 conference games, Mikey Dixon is leading the Big Sky Conference and scoring at 25.3 points per game. If for no reason, people should give Idaho a chance to watch just because Mikey Dixon is the best scoring guard I've ever seen at Idaho. I'm counting Trayvon Allen. I'm counting Vic Sanders. Now, those guys played different systems, but the efficiency numbers that Mikey Dixon has are just incredible because of how damn good he is at drawing fouls. Against Montana State, he goes 13 to 13 from the foul line. Against Eastern, Mikey Dixon also goes 12 to 13 from the foul line. So in 2 games, he shoots 25 free throws, 26 free throws, makes 25 of them. Dixon's the highlight of this team. Now, what I want to pivot to here is I'm done talking about last year's team, because last year's team, again, listen to the episodes, it was historically bad. If that is your comparison for this team, it's because your standards for Idaho basketball are fiber optic subterranean cable. This team definitely should have beaten Eastern Washington with how we played, and we didn't. That was, to me, the most frustrating thing. Was offensively, we could do quite a bit. I mean, you referenced Travante's shooting numbers, and yeah, that did hurt. But look, Rashad Smith scored 17 points on 10 shots. Pretty dang good. We also had Tanner Christensen, 14 points on 11 shots, plus 8 rebounds. And Yusuf Saleh, freshman, he took 12 shots to get there, but he contributes 11. Jamil King has what I think is his Vandal high, or at least his D1 high, of 11 points. That's a lot of guys contributing on the offensive end, which you would not be shocked about when you see we have 93 points. The issue this team has is that, look, our rebounding numbers are getting better, but defensively, my God. I mean, Idaho in conference is giving up 89.7 points per game, which is 10, almost 11 points per game worse than the second worst scoring defense in Northern Colorado. Our scoring margin overall is negative 9.7, so not the worst in conference, but it's clumped there right with Northern Arizona and Idaho State, where NAU's at negative 11, Idaho State's at negative 13.8. After that, Portland State's the next closest team to Idaho, and they're at negative 2.7. So there's a cliff that falls off after number 8 in conference between 9, 10, and 11 with Idaho scoring margin-wise at number 9. But then field goal percentage defense. Idaho's letting teams shoot 50.5% overall from the field when they play us, and 3-point field goal percentage defense. We're giving up, teams shoot 46% from 3 against us in conference. That is a level of bad that is almost unrecoverable from, even with how we're scoring well and our rebounding numbers are much better than they were earlier in the season. If that's the kind of defensive effort we have, we're just not going to win games. And to me, Zach Kloss now, look, he's coaching for his life. Like Paul Petrino just got fired with a much more impressive resume of turning teams around, than Zach Kloss has. Zach Kloss is beyond moral victories. And we saw this last year. We saw this in his first season. Some close early games, if they don't turn into wins, that really does matter for teams. And Idaho now is at the point in D1 games, we are 1-10. We're 3-10 overall, but 2 of those are sub D1 wins. So again, in games that matter, we're 1-10. I know that if we reference last year, it feels like a turnaround. No reasonable fan's going to call us a turnaround. It's a more palatable version. But at this point, these close games just have to turn into wins. And the only way they're going to do that is we have to have a not catastrophically bad defense. And I don't know if we can do that.
And that's the thing. I don't think we can. As the guys in the comments are jumping in, the X's and O's are not great. It's pretty easy to pin it on coaching because there is definitely more talent on this team than we've seen in previous years. Sometimes it doesn't look like they know what they're doing. Shout out to Tom Kendall and Captain 58.
Just pause. You mean defensively, because offensively this is a good team.
Yes. Offensively, I mean, again, they put up 93 points. I know Eastern's having a down year. They're not the Eastern from last year, but defensively things look rough. And that's what I didn't mean earlier when I called out Trevante, and I didn't mean it to come across like that. Trevante going 3 for 14 is obviously not great, but that's where we're at with this program. Is if one guy has an off night, they probably can't score enough to recover from the fact that they are so bad defensively. And so that's kind of the issue of where we're at. You need 7 guys to have very good nights to be able to compete night in and night out, because the defense is just so atrociously bad.
Scoring numbers, sorry to cut in there, just to give people a reference point, then throw it right back to you, Dallas. Idaho leads the Big Sky in conference in scoring. We're scoring 80 points a game. We're the number 5 field goal percentage team at 45%. We are the best 3-point shooting team at 40%, and we're 0-3 in conference.
I mean, and that's that. I have nothing further to elaborate on there. That's the whole point of what I mean. Is this team's more fun? It's a like you said, a more palatable version of being bad, but that's pretty damn bad. If you score 93 points and you lose, and it was in regulation, it wasn't like a 7 overtime game. That's a problem, and it's just. Everything we hear about Zach Kloss is that he's a great guy. He turned around some of the program's problems behind the scenes and the academic stuff and all of the coaching young boys to men is the best way I can say it. Everything we've heard is that he's done a great job with that, but the results on the court are just not there. And while this team is better than last year, and again, I don't want to keep bringing up last year's team, it's better, as it's more watchable. At the end of the day, they're getting their butts kicked night in and night out, and I just don't know what can change about that.
The big thing that hurt us in terms of scoring margin was Montana State, where Montana State early looked like they were going to win by 100. They ended up winning by 20. Idaho kind of rectified that. We were killed on the boards early. We only were out rebounded by 3 against Montana State. Otherwise, our Big Sky conference games, the scoring margin's a little misleading. We lost at home to Southern Utah 81-75. Then we also lost, like we said, to Eastern 96-93. That's 2 close games. Now, the Eastern game, we also had a 3 at the buzzer, so it's actually closer to a 6-point game. But still, those are 2 winnable games that Idaho did not look bad offensively. Our offensive numbers, look, the jury here would be Zach Kloss took Idaho's offense from one of the worst to first in conference. That's a pretty big turnaround, and there's some strategic stuff we've talked about that he's doing. Mainly, we're getting a lot of our posts are more out of the key. Right now, they're being used more as screeners and to facilitate the offense. When Tanner Christensen was scoring, it's because he was getting real deep position, like foot inside the restricted area. And at that point, that's a great possession for him. But if we can't become flirting with okay defensively, that just doesn't matter. We're still not going to come away with wins, even when we have seen growth offensively, strategically from Zach Kloss and with the recruits he's brought in. But I want to take your temperature because this is just going to be a theme we talk about. If the season ended today, is Zach Kloss the head coach for the 2022-23 season?
If it ended today, no. I do not believe, especially off of the strength. And I think a lot of this is coming down to just public perception. You have what I would say is not an all-time high in interest in Vandal football, but obviously our viewership and Patreon numbers have exploded. And thank you to every single one of you who listens to us and the dumb things we say and pays to be part of our private Discord. Thank you all. But even on social media, it seems like Idaho's footprint is growing, and it's all because they moved on from Petrino and brought in Eck, who's this loud, gregarious guy that people love. Not saying that that's what they need to do with Idaho basketball, but keeping this commitment to something that is obviously not working, I think puts all the goodwill you're buying with football right now, I think it puts all of that in jeopardy. And if the season ended today, I don't see how you can bring Zach Kloss back.
Season ended today, I'm with you. There's no way he's coming back. But we do have some scheduling stuff that could help the basketball team as far as a potential turnaround. This Thursday, we're at Weber State. Penciled that in as a loss. Weber State's one of the top teams in conference. But after that, Idaho got hurt, I think, by a couple of our easier games getting canceled because of coronavirus. and we have those games rescheduled. So after Weber State on January 13th, that's Thursday, we're at Idaho State on Saturday. That's a winnable game in Pocatello. Then Monday the 17th, a rescheduled game at Northern Arizona. That's, we have to travel, but that's winnable too. We then have Northern Colorado that week, but then after Northern Colorado, we have Sac State and Portland State at home. So we're going to have to pick up some road wins. But in the same way that we're right now frustrated about the results, those are some winnable games. Now, Idaho needs to get to a point where we're not just looking at the lower teams in conference to talk about getting wins against. But if Zach Kloss, we were told Zach Kloss needs to get around 12-ish wins. So let's just say the number's 12. He has 3. Only 1 should count, but that's not what we were told. If he can pick off a few of those wins, then maybe the narrative and the energy around the team changes. He's got a chance. He has a chance at that with the next games coming up.
Exactly. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I've been messaging with Tom in our comments. I don't think there's a great chance that they beat Idaho State. I mean, Idaho State is bad, but it just that doesn't feel great to me right now. But I'm always negative. I'll own that. If they rattled off, pick off a win with Idaho State, NAU, and say split it between Sac State and Portland State, if they go 3-3 in the next 6 games, we might be having a different conversation here. We might be having the conversation of, hey, they're winning against the bottom of the conference. Is their momentum growing here? So this could be a completely different conversation in 2 weeks, but as it stands right now, I have little to no hope. Captain 58 calling it now. They will win in Pokey. I hope you are so correct there, Dan, but I've been a Vandal fan my entire life. I just expect pain all the time.
Yeah, Idaho State's terrible this year. They're averaging 55 points a game. Their scoring margin is negative 13.8. That's around what we were last year. So that if Klaus has a prayer of coming back, that better be a winnable game. We better come away with that win. I'm fine calling this good for now on Basketball Dallas. Listeners, we're going to go back to instant reaction for basketball as quickly as we can. Just didn't work this last week. Then we had coaching news, so might as well run the football thing before we head out. A little bit of housekeeping that we need to announce, and we will be getting in contact with individual people. Final thing we have left, Tubbs the Club, in terms of structure with the turnover and ownership, as in me, Martin, and Dallas are running the show here at Tubbs, is there's some things with Patreon that we could not rectify. No one's going to be charged anything, but we're going to be setting up a separate Patreon account and working with people individually to move over from the current Patreon to the new Patreon prior to February 1st. Now, if you signed up before January 1st, I mean, hey, you've already been contacted. Patreon's already billed you for the month of January. Not a big deal. If you signed up after January 1st, you have not yet been billed a penny. We want to make sure that we get everyone moved over to the separate account. Nothing that you're experiencing right now is going to change, except it might run a little more smoothly. But that is a housekeeping thing we have to get in contact with individuals about. We're going to personally. We're just bringing it up because we've had a surge in patrons to the only Tubbs at patreon.com/Tubbs the Club. That's still going to be the URL you will sign up to in the future, but we have some background work on our end, and then Martin, Dallas, and I are going to individually get in contact with current patrons, of which we have 27. We've seen a surge. We're really excited about that. Really excited about all the patrons we have. So we're going to get the new Patreon running so we can get current guys moved over and new guys signed up.
And those of you that are at the club card or any other level where you're supposed to be getting stuff from us and extra benefits, those are going to be coming. Now that Brian, Martin, and I are going to be in charge of this thing, we're hoping to kind of rectify that. I don't believe a lot of you have gotten some of the things I think that the club card, I think you're supposed to get a shirt every 6 months is what it was set up for, and I don't believe that's been happening. We will be sorting out all of that as soon as we move off of the old account we can no longer use to the new account managed by Brian, Martin, and myself. So thank you guys for your patience with a lot of this stuff. We're gonna get working on it, gonna get it all sorted out. Very soon we'll all be on the new Only Tubbs 2.0 with maybe more explicit content. We're still trying to talk Hot Take Heemster into doing some more with it, but we'll see. Oh, see, look, he's even here. He's here in the comments with the winky kissy face. Who knows what we're gonna see?
Hot take. All right, that's all we have. That's the final housekeeping matter. We'll be back. At this point, Dallas, we'd be expecting to record Saturday and not Tuesday. Depends if we have football news. So if we have football news, we'll record Tuesday. But I think it's time to call it a night. Thanks for everyone for joining. 21 live streams right now still. So pretty great participation, guys. Thanks for helping the show grow. Thanks for contributing, whether it's a viewer or patron or both. It's now time for Kobe Cuff to play us out. Go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
So raise your glass and have a drink with me. Here's to the Vandals in the crowd. All just out there living the dream. Part of one and only Moscow drinking team.